Ambassador Du Young Kim looked at her reflection in the mirror-like surface of the space station's wall. Her black diplomatic uniform fit perfectly, with its silver Earth insignia shining on her chest. She had spent 20 years preparing for this day, but nothing could have truly prepared her for what she was about to do. "Ambassador, it's time," said Han Bin, her young aide, as he walked into her private chamber. He carried a stack of digital tablets, each containing evidence that would shock the entire galactic community. Du Young nodded and straightened her collar one last time. "Are all the files ready?" "Yes, Ambassador. Everything is encrypted and backed up 3 times, just as you asked." Han Bin's fingers moved quickly across his tablet, double-checking their preparations. Security Chief Tawan has also finished his final sweep of the route to the assembly chamber. No listening devices were found. The ambassador smiled slightly. The other species thought humans were paranoid, but they had learned the hard way to be careful. Trust was a luxury they could no longer afford, not after what happened at Europa Station. Together, they walked through the sweeping corridors of Unity Station, the massive space structure that served as the headquarters for the Galactic Assembly. The station was a marvel of engineering, with its crystal-clear windows showing the swirling purple nebula beyond. Species from all corners of the galaxy moved around them, some floating in special tanks filled with their breathing liquids, others rolling on multiple legs, and some flying in the higher paths designed for winged beings. Du Young noticed how other diplomats moved aside as they passed, their various sensing organs tracking the humans' movement. Word had spread quickly about this emergency session of the assembly. Everyone knew the humans had requested it, but no one knew why. The mystery had created a tension that filled every corner of the station. "Ambassador Kim," a voice called out. Du Young turned to see senior diplomat Jai-Ho Park hurrying toward them. "Earth Command sent an update. You'll want to see this before we enter the chamber." Jai-Ho handed her a secure tablet. Du Young's expression remained neutral as she read, but her hands tightened slightly on the device's edges. She passed it back to Jai-Ho and spoke quietly. "Make sure this information is added to File Set C. We'll need it during the 3rd phase of the presentation." The massive doors of the assembly chamber stood before them, their surface carved with symbols representing every member species of the galactic community. 2 spots near the bottom remained empty, spaces reserved for newly discovered spacefaring races. Earth's symbol should have been carved there months ago, but the process had been delayed for various political reasons. Security Chief Tawan met them at the entrance. His tactical uniform, though formal, was clearly designed for action rather than ceremony. "Ambassador, the chamber is full. All 342 member species are represented today. That's unusual." "They're curious," Du Young said, her voice calm. "They think we're here to beg for help or to ask for technology trading rights." She looked at each member of her team. They're about to learn how wrong they are. The doors slid open silently, revealing the vast circular chamber beyond. Tiers of seats rose up like a giant bowl, filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Some sat in traditional chairs, while others rested in environmental containers or hovered in anti-gravity fields. The lighting adjusted automatically for different species' visual needs, creating a strange pattern of light and shadow throughout the room. At the center of the chamber, a large circular platform waited. This was where speakers addressed the assembly, their words translated instantly into hundreds of languages and communication formats. High Counselor Rix, a being composed of crystalline structures and bioluminescent tendrils, floated in their leadership position. Their voice resonated through the chamber's perfect acoustics. "The assembly recognizes Earth's delegation. Ambassador Kim, you have requested this emergency session. Please present your case." Du Young walked to the central platform, her steps measured and confident. Han Bin and Jai-Ho took their positions slightly behind her, while Ta-Wan remained near the entrance, his eyes constantly scanning the chamber. "Honorable representatives of the Galactic Assembly," Du Young began, her voice clear and strong. 3 months ago, an attack on humanity's Europa Station resulted in the deaths of 2,000 civilians. This assembly declared it a tragic accident caused by a spatial anomaly. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Today, I am here to present evidence that will prove this was no accident. Du Young nodded to Hanbin, who activated the chamber's holographic system. Above them, a three-dimensional image appeared, showing the Europa Station, a beautiful structure of silver and glass that had once orbited Jupiter's ice-covered moon. This is Europa Station as it appeared 4 months ago, Du Young continued. It was humanity's first major research station beyond Mars. We housed families there. Children. She paused, letting that sink in. The station's purpose was purely scientific. It studied Jupiter's moons and the potential for life in their subsurface oceans. The image changed, showing a series of ships approaching the station. These vessels were registered to the Proxima Coalition. They claimed to be a trading fleet seeking emergency repairs. Europa Station welcomed them. As per the humanitarian protocols, this very assembly recommended we follow. High Counselor Rix's tendrils pulsed with patterns of concern. Ambassador Kim, these events were thoroughly investigated. The coalition ships experienced a critical drive malfunction that resulted in. With respect, High Counselor, Du Young interrupted, her tone still perfectly polite, but carrying an edge of steel. I am not finished. The chamber fell silent. No one interrupted the High Counselor. It simply wasn't done. But Du Young stood calmly, waiting until Rix's tendrils settled into patterns indicating acceptance. What you are about to see has never been shown outside Earth's highest military command. She nodded to Jio, who activated the next sequence. The hologram showed the coalition ships again, but now in much greater detail. Strange devices could be seen attached to their hulls, their purpose unclear until Jio zoomed in further. These are Thorn-class weapon systems, Du Young explained. Officially, they don't exist. The assembly banned their development 60 years ago. Yet here they are, clearly visible on ships that claim to be simple traders. The images continued, showing the ships moving closer to Europa Station. Timestamps proved they had maintained a perfect attack formation, not the chaotic pattern of vessels with malfunctioning drives. We recovered this footage from a backup system that survived the attack. The coalition ships knew exactly what they were doing. They had disabled our long-range communications before revealing their true intentions. They gave the station no warning, no chance to evacuate the civilians. The next images made several representatives turn away or cover their visual organs. The station's destruction was methodical, precise. The Thorn weapons pierced its shields as if they weren't there, cutting through the hull with terrible efficiency. 2,000 civilians, Du Young repeated quietly. Scientists, families, children, all dead in less than 15 minutes. She turned slowly, making eye contact with representatives from each major power block in the assembly. But the coalition made a mistake. They didn't know about our quantum entanglement communication system. They couldn't block it because they didn't know it existed. We saw everything in real time. We just couldn't do anything to stop it. High Counselor Rix's tendrils had shifted to a pale, disturbed color. Ambassador Kim, these accusations are extremely serious. The use of Thorn weapons would indeed be a grave violation of assembly law. We are not making accusations, High Counselor, Du Young said. We are presenting facts. Facts that your own investigation mysteriously failed to uncover. She pressed a button on her tablet, and new information flooded the chamber's shared data space. These are internal communications from the coalition fleet, intercepted and decoded by our systems. They proved the attack was planned months in advance. They proved that multiple members of this assembly knew about it. Some even helped plan it. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted denials, demands for proof, calls for order. Through it all, Du Young stood calmly at the center, watching the reaction she had known would come. Order. High Counselor Rix's voice cut through the noise, their crystalline form vibrating with authority. Ambassador Kim, You realize the diplomatic implications of what you're claiming. Of course, Du Young replied. That's why we gathered absolutely irrefutable evidence before bringing this to the assembly. She gestured to Han Bin, who distributed more data to the chamber systems. Everything has been authenticated using assembly protocols. The evidence is genuine. She looked up at the gathered representatives, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. But this meeting isn't about proving what happened. We already know what happened. This meeting is about what happens next. Are you seeking assembly intervention? Rix asked. We can convene a judicial council. No, High Counselor. Du Young's slight smile held no warmth. We're not here to ask for justice. We're here to inform you of consequences. The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence held a different quality. Fear. Humanity has learned many things since we joined the Galactic community, Du Young continued. We've learned that the Assembly's laws protect the powerful. We've learned that treaties mean nothing when bigger species want what smaller ones have. And we've learned that we can trust no one but ourselves. She touched her tablet one final time, and a new image appeared above the chamber. It showed Earth's solar system, but something was different. Scattered throughout the space between planets were thousands of small, stealthy objects that hadn't been there before. What you're seeing is humanity's response to the Europa Station attack. While the Assembly conducted its false investigation, while the Coalition thought they had gotten away with murder, we were busy. The image zoomed in on one of the objects, revealing a sleek, dark design that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. We call them ghosts, Du Young said. They're automated defense platforms, completely invisible to standard scanners, powered by technology we developed ourselves, not borrowed or stolen from other species, and they're now stationed throughout every human-controlled space. She looked directly at the Coalition representatives. They're programmed to respond to any act of aggression against human installations or ships. Their response will be automatic, overwhelming, and final. The Coalition representatives' color patterns showed clear distress. One of them stood, their translator conveying their angry tone. This is an outrageous violation of Assembly defense treaties. You cannot. We can. Du Young interrupted. We have, and we're just getting started. She turned back to High Counselor Rix. Humanity came to the stars in peace. We followed your rules. We trusted in your laws. That trust cost 2,000 innocent lives. She straightened to her full height, her voice carrying the weight of Earth's unified determination. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request for permission. This is us informing you that the rules have changed. Humanity will defend itself, with or without Assembly approval. The chamber erupted once more, but Du Young was already walking toward the exit, her team falling in behind her. At the door, she turned one last time to address the chaos she had created. We'll be leaving this station within the hour. Anyone who wishes to maintain diplomatic relations with Earth should contact our embassy on Luna Base. Those who were involved in the Europa Station attack. She paused, her eyes hard. Well, you should pray we never find proof of your involvement. As the doors closed behind them, cutting off the sound of arguing representatives, Han Bin spoke quietly. They're scared. Good, Du Young replied. They should be. Humanity tried playing by their rules. Now they can learn to play by ours. The human delegation walked away from the assembly chamber, leaving behind a galaxy it was just beginning to realize its terrible mistake. They had thought humanity would be easy to control, easy to intimidate. They were wrong, and they would never make that mistake again. The human embassy on Unity Station was nothing like the grand chambers of other species. It was practical and simple, much like the people who used it. Security Chief Taiwan walked through its plain corridors, his boots making no sound on the soft floor covering. In his hand, he held a secure tablet containing a message that would change everything. Everyone to the main conference room. He called out through the embassy's communication system. New information from Earth Command. Priority 1. Ambassador Du Young Kim arrived first, still wearing her formal uniform from the assembly meeting. Her face showed no sign of the tension from earlier, but Tai-1 had known her long enough to see it in her eyes. Han Bin and Ji-ho came in right behind her, carrying their own tablets and looking curious. Tai-1 locked the door and activated the embassy's security field. A soft blue light filled the room, showing that no one could listen to what they were about to discuss. He connected his tablet to the room's main display screen and took a deep breath. Earth Command has finished analyzing the data from the black box we recovered from Europa Station, he said. The screen showed a damaged piece of equipment, its edges melted from intense heat. Our engineers managed to rebuild it. What they found. He paused, his hands tightening into fists. What they found changes everything. The screen changed to show a series of messages. They were written in the official language of the Galactic Assembly, used by all member species for important communications. Du Young leaned forward, her eyes moving quickly as she read. These are messages between the coalition ships and someone else, Tai-1 explained. Someone high up in the assembly. The attack wasn't just about destroying our research station. It was a test. A test of what? Han Bin asked, his young face showing confusion. A test of how we would respond, Du Young answered quietly. She had already reached the end of the messages. They wanted to see how Earth would react to a direct attack, whether we would ask the assembly for help or try to fight back on our own. Ji-ho stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. That's why the investigation was blocked. That's why they claimed it was an accident. They were watching us, studying our response. Tai-1 nodded grimly. But that's not the worst part. He touched his tablet again, and new information appeared on the screen. The coalition ships were carrying more than just weapons. They had scanning equipment, unlike anything we've seen before. They were scanning Europa Station's defenses, our shield technology, our weapons systems. They were gathering military intelligence, Du Young said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes had turned hard as steel. While killing our people, they were studying how we fight. Yes, Tai-1 confirmed, but they made a mistake. The scanning equipment recorded everything it saw, and that data was stored in the black box. Our engineers have spent months studying it. We now know exactly what kind of technology the coalition ships were using. And more importantly, we know who gave it to them. The screen changed again, showing a complex diagram of ship systems. Parts of it were highlighted in red, with notes in Earth Standard English beside them. These components, Tai-1 pointed, are only made by the Centauri Confederation. The power systems come from the Rigel Republic. The weapon control systems are Proxima Coalition design, but they've been modified using assembly military technology that's supposed to be restricted. Han Bin's eyes widened as he understood. They're working together. The major powers in the assembly. They're all part of this. Not all, Ji-ho corrected, studying the diagram carefully. But enough. Enough to be very, very dangerous. Du Young stood and walked to the window. Outside, the purple nebula swirled peacefully, its beauty hiding the political storms brewing within the station. They think we're too young, she said softly. Too inexperienced. They see Earth as a threat to their power, so they decided to test us, to see how easy it would be to control us through fear. She turned back to her team, and there was something in her expression that made even Tai-1 straighten up. Show them the rest, she ordered. Tai-1 nodded and brought up the final set of data. While they were scanning us, our systems were scanning them. The coalition ships used advanced technology, yes, but their crews made basic mistakes. They didn't encrypt all their communications. They didn't clean their computer systems properly. Our AI found fragments of deleted files, records of conversations, mission briefings. The screen filled with text, charts, and images, plans for future operations, lists of targets, discussion of strategies. They're planning more attacks, Han Bin whispered, his face pale. Not just against us, against any species that doesn't follow their rules. Europa Station was just the beginning. Taiwan confirmed. They want to make examples of younger species who are developing too quickly, species who might threaten the current balance of power. Du Young walked to the center of the room, her posture straight and proud. Earth Command has reviewed all of this information. They've made their decision. She looked at each member of her team in turn. We're not going to wait for the next attack. We're not going to play their game anymore. What are we going to do? Han Bin asked. We're going to show them exactly who they're dealing with, Du Young answered. Taiwan, tell them about Project Mirror. The security chief smiled slightly as he brought up a new set of files. While the assembly thought we were licking our wounds after the Europa attack, we were actually very busy. Our engineers took apart every piece of technology we could salvage from the coalition ships. We studied it, understood it, and then we made it better. The screen showed images of new ships being built in secret facilities throughout Earth's solar system. They looked similar to the coalition vessels that had attacked Europa Station, but there were subtle differences. Everything they used against us, we've recreated, Taiwan explained. Their shield technology, their weapons, their stealth systems, but we didn't just copy them. We improved them, made them more efficient, more powerful. How is that possible? Jaiho asked, leaning forward to study the technical specifications. Some of these systems took other species centuries to develop. Because we think differently, Du Young answered. Other species develop technology in a linear way, building carefully on what came before. Humans, we jump around. We try crazy ideas. We combine things that shouldn't work together, and sometimes we make breakthroughs that others thought were impossible. She touched the screen, bringing up an image of Earth's solar system. Throughout it, small dots of light showed the locations of the new Ghost defense platforms they had revealed to the assembly. The Ghosts aren't just defensive weapons, she said. They're also testing grounds. Each one carries prototype systems, new ideas our scientists are developing. Every day, they learn from each other, share data, improve their designs. The assembly thinks they're just automated defense platforms. They have no idea what they're really capable of. When will Earth Command activate them? Han Bin asked. They already have, Taiwan answered. The moment we left the assembly chamber, the entire network went live. Right now, every ship entering or leaving our solar system is being scanned, analyzed, and tracked. If any of them show hostile intent, he paused meaningfully. They'll learn exactly how much humanity has advanced. Du Young finished. She walked to her chair and sat down, her movements precise and controlled. Tomorrow, we go back to the assembly. Tomorrow, we show them the rest of the evidence. And tomorrow, we let them know that their game is over. They won't take it well, Jaiho warned. The major powers have controlled the assembly for centuries. They won't give up that control easily. They don't have a choice, Du Young replied. We've already uploaded copies of all our evidence to secure servers throughout human space. If anything happens to us, if they try to silence us, that evidence goes public. Every species in the galaxy will know what they did, what they were planning to do. She looked around the table at her team. Humanity tried to play by their rules. We tried to be peaceful, to be diplomatic. They took that as weakness. Tomorrow, they learn how wrong they were. Taiwan's tablet beeped with a new message. He read it quickly, his eyebrows rising. Earth Command has just approved Operation Stellar Dawn. All military units are on standby. The Ghost network is fully operational. He looked up at Du Young. We're ready. The ambassador nodded slowly. Send word to all human ships in assembly space. Tell them to be prepared for quick departure. If things go badly tomorrow, we'll need to leave quickly. Do you think it will come to that? Han Bin asked nervously. I hope not, Du Young answered honestly. But if it does, we're ready. The assembly needs to understand that humanity won't be bullied, won't be controlled, and won't stand by while they threaten peaceful species. She stood again, and her team rose with her. Get some rest, she ordered. Tomorrow will be a long day. Tomorrow, we change the galaxy. As her team filed out of the conference room, Du Young remained behind, looking out at the nebula. In its swirling colors, she could almost see the future taking shape, a future where humanity stood strong and independent, a future where the Assembly's games of power and control were exposed and ended. They had tried to teach humanity a lesson at Europa Station. Instead, they had taught humanity that the galaxy was more dangerous than they had imagined. That trust had to be earned, not given. That strength was respected more than diplomacy. Tomorrow, the Assembly would learn its own lesson, and Du Young Kim would be the one to teach it to them. The nebula's purple light reflected in her eyes as she smiled slightly. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. The morning came too quickly on Unity Station. Ambassador Du Young Kim watched her reflection as she put on her uniform for what might be the last time. Today would change everything. Today, humanity would show its true strength. A soft chime at her door announced Han Bin's arrival. The young aide entered carrying breakfast, but Du Young noticed his hands were shaking slightly. "Nervous?" she asked, accepting the food tray. "Shouldn't I be?" Han Bin replied. "What we're about to do, no species has ever challenged the Assembly like this before." Du Young smiled gently. "That's exactly why we must do it. The Assembly has ruled through fear for too long. Someone needs to be first. It might as well be us." Security Chief Ta Won's voice came through the room's communication system. "Ambassador, the latest update from Earth Command has arrived. You'll want to see this." In the embassy's main conference room, Ta Won had already set up the display screens. Senior diplomat Jai Ho was there too, studying data on his tablet with intense concentration. "Earth Command has confirmed movement of coalition forces," Ta Won reported, bringing up a map of nearby star systems. Red dots showed enemy ship positions. "They're trying to be subtle about it, but they're definitely preparing for something. They suspect we know more than we revealed yesterday," Jai Ho said, looking up from his tablet. "Our intelligence suggests several emergency meetings were held during the night cycle." Du Young studied the map carefully. "How many ships?" "At least 30 battle groups," Ta Won answered. "All positioned just outside assembly space. They're being careful not to violate any official treaties, but their intentions are clear. They think they can intimidate us," Du Young said softly. "They still don't understand." She turned to her team. "Is everything ready for the presentation?" Han Bin nodded, pulling up a detailed schedule on his tablet. "All the evidence is prepared. The Assembly's data systems have been updated to handle the volume of information we're going to share. And..." He paused, looking nervous again. "Operation Stellar Dawn is ready to begin on your command." "Good." Du Young straightened her uniform. "Let's go show them exactly who they're dealing with." The walk to the assembly chamber felt different today. Other diplomats still moved aside as the human delegation passed, but now their movements seemed more hurried, almost fearful. News of yesterday's revelations had spread quickly through the station. At the chamber doors, a group of coalition representatives blocked their path. Their leader, Ambassador Kext, stepped forward. His crystalline body structure sparkled aggressively under the corridor lights. "Ambassador Kim," he said, his translator making his tone sound artificially pleasant. "Perhaps we could speak privately before the session begins. I'm sure we can resolve any misunderstandings without troubling the full assembly." Du Young met his gaze steadily. "Yesterday I presented evidence of your attack on our people. Today I will present evidence of your plans for future attacks. There are no misunderstandings, Ambassador Kex. Only facts. Facts that the entire galaxy needs to hear." She stepped around him and walked through the chamber doors, her team following closely. Behind them, they could hear Kex's crystalline form vibrating with barely controlled anger. The chamber was even more crowded than yesterday. Word had spread about the humans' evidence, and no species wanted to miss what was coming. High Counselor Rix floated in their central position, their bioluminescent tendrils showing patterns of deep concern. Ambassador Kim, Rix began as the humans took their places at the speaking platform. Before you continue your presentation, the Council would like to propose. With respect, High Counselor, Du Young interrupted, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. We are not here for proposals. We are here to finish what we started yesterday. She nodded to Handin, who activated the chamber's holographic systems. Above them, a complex display appeared, showing ship movements, communication records, and military deployments throughout assembly space. What you are seeing is proof of a conspiracy, Du Young announced. A conspiracy by the major powers of this assembly to control and suppress developing species who might threaten their dominance. The display focused on specific ship movements. These are coalition battle groups moving into position around multiple developing worlds. Not just Earth. Any world that shows too much progress, too much independence, becomes a target. She gestured, and the display changed to show communication records. These messages, intercepted by our intelligence systems, show the planning. The coordination between powers who claim to be independent but work together to maintain their control. The chamber erupted in shouts and denials, but Du Young's voice cut through the chaos. We have proof. Proof that cannot be denied or dismissed. The attack on Europa Station was just the beginning. You plan to make examples of us, to show other young species what happens when they develop too quickly, when they don't follow your rules. High Counselor Rix's tendrils had turned a pale, agitated color. Ambassador Kim, these are serious accusations. If you have proof. The proof has already been uploaded to the Assembly's secure databases, Jaiho announced, stepping forward. Every representative here has access to it. Every species can see for themselves what their leaders have been planning. The Chamber's data systems lit up as hundreds of representatives began accessing the files. The sounds of shock and anger grew louder as they read. But this meeting isn't just about exposing your crimes, Du Young continued. It's about warning you about the consequences of your actions. She pressed a control on her tablet, and a new image appeared above the chamber. It showed Earth's solar system, but now it was different. The ghost platforms they had revealed yesterday were gone. Instead, the space between planets bristled with new structures, new ships, new weapons that no one had seen before. While you thought we were recovering from your attack, while you planned your next moves against us, humanity was preparing. Du Young's voice carried a tone of cold satisfaction. Everything you used against us, we studied. Everything you thought would frighten us, we improved upon. And everything you planned to use in the future, we developed countermeasures for. The display zoomed in on one of the new ships. Its design was unlike anything in the Assembly's records. This is the Guardian class, Du Young explained. Built using technology we developed ourselves, not stolen or copied from others. Its shields can withstand any weapon currently known to the Assembly. Its sensors can detect ships using any known stealth system. And its weapons. She paused meaningfully. Well, let's hope we never have to demonstrate those. Ambassador Keck stood up, his crystalline form vibrating with rage. This is an outrageous violation of Assembly military treaties. You cannot. We can. Du Young cut him off. We have, and we're just getting started. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes or sensing organs of each major power's representatives. As of this moment, humanity is activating Operation Stellar Dawn. Our full defense network is now online. Any aggressive action against Earth or our colonies will be met with immediate and overwhelming response. The display changed again, showing a map of known space. Small lights began appearing, spreading out from Earth in all directions. These are our monitoring stations, hidden throughout assembly space, watching, listening, gathering intelligence. We know your movements, we know your plans, and we know exactly how to stop you. High Counselor Rix floated forward, their tendrils showing patterns of diplomatic urgency. Ambassador Kim, surely we can discuss this reasonably. The Assembly has procedures for handling disputes between species. We can form a committee. No more committees, Du Young said firmly. No more investigations that go nowhere. No more political games while innocent people die. She straightened to her full height. Humanity joined this assembly in good faith. We believed in its principles of peace and cooperation. But you showed us the truth. The assembly exists to protect the powerful, not to help the weak. She gestured, and the display showed Europa Station again, but this time as it looked after the attack. The destroyed structure, the floating debris, the bodies of the innocent. You thought this would teach us to be afraid. Instead, it taught us to be strong, to be ready, to be better than you. Do Young's voice softened slightly, but her words carried clearly to every corner of the chamber. This is your only warning. Humanity will not be controlled. We will not be suppressed. And we will not stand by while you threaten other peaceful species who are simply trying to grow and develop. She pressed another control, and the display vanished. You have a choice to make. Continue your games of power and control, and face the consequences, or work with us to build a truly fair and peaceful galaxy. One where strength doesn't give you the right to bully others, where progress isn't punished with violence. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the most aggressive representatives seemed stunned by the humans' boldness. We will remain on Unity Station for 24 more hours, Du Young announced. Any species that wishes to establish genuine peaceful relations with humanity is welcome to contact our embassy. After that, she smiled slightly. After that, we forge our own path among the stars, and we'll remember who stood with us and who stood against us. She turned to leave, but stopped at the edge of the platform. One more thing. Her voice carried an edge of steel. The coalition ships that attacked Europa Station, we know where they are. We know who commanded them, and we know who gave the orders. Remember that before you decide your next move. The human delegation walked out of the chamber, leaving behind a stunned silence. As they reached the corridor, Han Bin spoke quietly. Do you think they'll actually change? Some will, Du Young replied. The smarter ones, the ones who can see that the old ways are ending. The others, she shrugged slightly. The others will learn the hard way that humanity isn't a species to be trifled with. As they walked back to their embassy, alerts began sounding throughout the station. Coalition ships were moving, breaking formation, retreating to their own territories. The warning had been received. The message was clear. Humanity had changed the rules of the game, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The 24-hour deadline was almost over. Ambassador Du Young Kim stood at the window of her office in the human embassy, watching ships move through space around Unity Station. Many of them were leaving in a hurry. The major powers didn't want their vessels anywhere near human space right now. Ambassador, Han Bin called from the doorway. We've received 68 requests for private meetings from different species, mostly from the younger civilizations, but some older ones too. Do Young nodded without turning from the window. How many of them voted against us during the Europa Station investigation? 43, Han Bin answered, checking his tablet. But most of them claim they were pressured by the coalition. They say they want to explain. I'm sure they do. Du Young finally turned away from the window. Sort them by technological level. Priority to the younger species who stood with us, then the ones who stayed neutral. The ones who voted against us can wait. Security Chief Ta-Won entered the office, his face serious. Coalition ships are still retreating, but they're being careful about it. Moving in small groups, taking indirect routes. They don't want us tracking their movements. Too late for that, Du Young said with a slight smile. Our monitoring stations are recording everything. How many ships have we identified from the Europa attack? 12 so far, Ta-Won reported. We have their exact positions. Earth Command wants to know if you're ready to proceed with Phase 2. Before Du Young could answer, Jeho rushed into the office. Ambassador, the Assembly Council is demanding an emergency session. They say it's about our ultimatum, but... He paused, catching his breath. But we've intercepted communications. The coalition is planning something. They're trying to gather support for a military response. Do Young walked to her desk and sat down calmly. How many species have agreed to support them? Only 16 so far, Jai-Ho answered. Much fewer than they expected. Most of the assembly is staying neutral, waiting to see what happens. And how many ships does Earth Command have ready? Taiwan brought up a tactical display on the office's main screen. 300 Guardian-class vessels are in position. The Ghost network is fully operational, and Operation Stellar Dawn's secondary systems are ready for activation. Do Young studied the display for a moment. Send word to Earth Command. Begin Phase 2. Han Bin looked nervous. Are you sure? Once we start this, there's no going back. Do Young finished for him. I know, but they need to understand that we weren't bluffing. That our warnings have teeth. Across human space, hidden systems began to power up. The Ghost platforms, which the assembly thought were just defensive weapons, revealed their true purpose. Each one contained advanced quantum computers, linked together in a vast network that could process information faster than any known system. In the space around Unity Station, several coalition ships suddenly found their engines shutting down. Their weapons went offline. Their communication systems stopped working. The same thing was happening throughout assembly space to every ship that had been involved in the Europa Station attack. Right on schedule, Taiwan said with satisfaction. The targeting systems worked perfectly. Only the guilty ships are affected. The office's communication system lit up with incoming messages. Dozens of assembly species were demanding to know what was happening. The coalition was screaming about acts of war. And through it all, Earth's ships sat quietly in space, watching and waiting. Ambassador Kim. High Counselor Rix's voice came through the priority channel. What is the meaning of this? You're attacking peaceful vessels in assembly space. No, High Counselor, Du Young replied calmly. We're not attacking anyone. We're simply ensuring that criminals face justice. She nodded to Jai-Ho, who activated a broadcast to all assembly species. Attention representatives of the Galactic Assembly. Du Young's voice rang out across all channels. As promised, humanity is taking action. The ships we have disabled are the same vessels that attacked Europa Station. Their crews murdered 2,000 innocent civilians. And now, they will answer for their crimes. She paused, letting that sink in. To the coalition leaders who ordered this attack, you have 1 hour to surrender these crews for trial. If you refuse, we will transport them ourselves, along with all the evidence of their guilt, including orders signed by their commanders. The coalition's response was immediate and angry. This is an outrageous violation of assembly law. You have no authority, To. We're not asking for authority, Du Young interrupted. We're dispensing justice, the kind of justice your assembly failed to provide. She looked at her team. Send the second message. Han Bin pressed a series of controls on his tablet. Throughout assembly space, every communication system began broadcasting a new signal. It showed detailed evidence of the coalition's crimes, not just against humanity, but against dozens of other species. We warned you yesterday that we had been watching. Du Young continued. Now everyone can see what we discovered. The bribes you paid to silence investigations. The threats you made to force smaller species to vote your way. The attacks you planned against anyone who grew too strong too quickly. In the space around Unity Station, more ships were powering down as the Ghost network identified them as belonging to corrupt officials and criminals exposed by humanity's evidence. This is the choice we offered you, Du Young announced. Justice or consequences. You chose consequences. Now face them. High Counselor Rix's voice came through again, their translator struggling to convey their mix of anger and fear. Ambassador Kim, you must stop this immediately. The assembly cannot function if... The assembly hasn't been functioning for a long time. Du Young cut them off. It's been serving the powerful while ignoring the weak. That ends today. She stood and walked to the window again, watching as more ships tried to flee the station. To all species who want real peace, real cooperation, Humanity stands ready to work with you. We'll share our technology, our knowledge, our protection, but we'll do it fairly, openly, without the games and threats that have poisoned this assembly. Taiwan's tactical display showed more ships powering down across assembly space. Not just coalition vessels now, but ships belonging to corrupt officials from many species. The Ghost Network had identified them all, targeting only those with clear evidence of crimes against them. 1 hour, Du Young repeated. Surrender the crews who attack Europa Station. Agree to fair trials for all those we've exposed, or we'll take them ourselves, and we'll broadcast every piece of evidence we have to every species in the galaxy. She turned to her team. Prepare the embassy for evacuation. When this is over, we won't be staying here. Where will we go? Han Bin asked. Home, Du Young answered. To Earth, where we'll help build something better than this corrupt assembly. Something based on real justice and cooperation, not fear and control. The next hour passed quickly. Some coalition leaders tried to resist, ordering their ships to fight back against the human vessels. But their weapons wouldn't fire. Their engines wouldn't respond. The Ghost Network had complete control. Other assembly members, seeing which way the wind was blowing, began offering their support to humanity. Younger species, tired of being bullied by the major powers, pledged to join whatever new organization Earth created. Finally, as the deadline approached, the coalition surrendered. Their ships' crews were transported to Earth custody, along with dozens of corrupt officials exposed by humanity's evidence. Du Young stood in the assembly chamber one last time, looking at the representatives of 300 species. Some were angry, some afraid, some hopeful. All of them knew that everything had changed. Humanity came to the stars hoping to find wisdom, she said. Instead, we found corruption and fear. You tried to teach us to be afraid. Instead, we learned to be strong, to be just, to be better than you. She turned to leave, then stopped. The Ghost Network will remain active. It will continue to watch for corruption, for crimes, for attempts to bully peaceful species. Consider it humanity's gift to the galaxy, a reminder that justice may be delayed, but it cannot be denied. As the human delegation walked out of the assembly chamber for the last time, Du Young felt a weight lift from her shoulders. They had done it. They had exposed the corruption, punished the guilty, and shown the galaxy a better way. What happens now? Han Bin asked, as they boarded their ship. Du Young looked out at the stars. Now we build something new, something better, and we remember the lessons we learned here. The human ships powered up their engines, their new technology humming quietly. Behind them, Unity Station grew smaller, a symbol of the old order they were leaving behind. Send word to Earth Command, Du Young ordered. Operation Stellar Dawn is complete. Phase 3 can begin. Across human space, new construction was already starting. Not weapons or defenses this time, but places of learning, of cooperation, of real peace. The kind of peace that comes from strength and justice, not fear and control. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly what humanity had intended all along. As their ships entered faster than light travel, Du Young smiled. The assembly had tried to teach humanity its place among the stars. Instead, humanity had taught the assembly that the time for corruption and bullying was over. A new age was beginning. And this time, the rules would be fair for everyone.